Well, joining me now is Cllr David Williams, who's Chairman-elect of the County Council's network and leader of Hertfordshire County Council. David, good evening.
Good evening, Julian.
Just to give us a sense of the picture around the country, we heard there of a council where a fifth of its spending is reliant on these kinds of short-term grants. How typical is that?
It's very typical. If you look at the complete picture around the country, government provides 6.9 billion to local councils of whatever sort. And the number that Alison used of 2.4 million is the amount that's subject to these temporary grants, the Better Care Fund, the Social Care Grant, and also the Winter Pressures Grant. Now, those three sources of funding amount to £2.4 billion, and they come to an end at the end of March next year.
And at this point, you don't know what lies beyond that?
No. So, the immediate priority here is to call on the Chancellor of the Exchequer to confirm that all current government funding for social care, including those temporary grants, is rolled over into the next financial year. But then, of course, the system doesn't stand still, and we estimate that there's a further £650 million of pressure right across the system that we're going to experience next year. So that's inflation, it's more demand, and we're asking government to fully fund that as well.
I think that's what might puzzle people about the system. I mean, has it always been like this, that there has been an element of the spending that you have available that does not come round automatically and you have to keep hoping it will happen again?
No, well, this has only happened in the last 3 years or so. And in fairness, it's the government's response to a system that we all know needs complete reform. But no, it's only in the last 3 years that permanent government funding has transposed into these temporary grants that have been made available for either a 3-year period or a 1-year period.
Right, I understand. On what Sajid Javid might be able to do to help here, we're going to hear from him next week. We know this spending review is going to be aired. What would you like him to say?
Well, he's talked about some of the Prime Minister's priorities. We've heard about the National Health Service, we've heard about police, and we've heard about education as well. I also want him to commit to the support to local councils to deliver social care. So I want to see that right up their agenda when he makes his spending round announcement next Wednesday. He's now the Chancellor of the Exchequer, but up until April 2018, he was the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government. So he does know this and he knows the challenges. Indeed, he was an excellent Secretary of State. So I sincerely hope that he'll be able to commit to rolling over this funding and providing the additional funding going into next year.
And the point was made in that piece, of course, that the government would say that it has already put more money into adult social care in recent times.
And much of that, and most of that money, Julian, is the temporary grants that we've talked about.
Right.
Those temporary grants which are coming to an end in March next year.
And just a wider point, and you hinted at this in an earlier answer, and I suspect if you went to almost any individual from any of the main parties, they would kind of go down this road, that we're getting close now, are we not, to the point where we cannot keep pushing this down the road, and at some point a bigger picture solution to funding adult social care has got to come forward?
Absolutely. This is a key priority for the government now. And in fairness, the Prime Minister has set out that it is one of his priorities as well to tackle this issue of social care funding, which has been kicked down the road. There are a number of aspects to this, but in particular, I'd highlight the terrible situation that some families face in terms of having to bear catastrophic care costs. And we must find a better way to address that. And we need to find a way to get more resources into the system as well. Now, you may be familiar with the work that Andrew Dilnot did a few years ago, where he was trying to tap into a limited amount of wealth that people have built up in their properties. Other people have spoken about national insurance. But the key thing here is to keep it fair. We don't want intergenerational challenges. We don't want the younger people in our population necessarily having to fund this demand arising out of largely our more elderly residents.
Okay. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much,
Thank
David
you.
Williams there.